Hi guys, I'm Brittany from Puerto Rico Roots, where we talk about growing a lot on a little bit of space. And today we're talking about one of my favorite topics, which is removing barriers to growing. One of the most common things I see people say, especially this time of year, is that gardening can be really overwhelming. And one of the biggest barriers to growing is often the cost, especially these days when money is tight for so many people. Gardening is one of those hobbies that if you let it get away from you, you can spend endless amounts of money. I love to treat myself on different things for making my garden easier all the time. But if you are looking to save the most amount of money possible and get started on more of an affordable, scrappy approach, I'm going to talk through 3 things that I think you should consider for your garden this year. The first is winter sowing your seeds. The second is using shop lights for seed germination. And the third is using a storage tub greenhouse method. I have videos about all of these topics that I will link below in the description, but I'm going to go over them in basics here just to give you guys an overview of what I mean by each of these things. So if you're unfamiliar with winter sowing seeds, it's a method where you're essentially creating a teeny tiny little microclimate, what is essentially a tiny greenhouse here, in something like a plastic jug. This is just a distilled water jug. We use a lot of our old milk jugs for this. You want it to be the kind that isn't completely opaque and white. You need it to be a little bit opaque, but even if you notice here, like you can't see completely through this jug when I put my hand on the back of it, it's not completely clear, and that is totally fine. This is all you need, the kind where if you stick your finger in, you can kind of see it on the outside, but it is a little bit more opaque than a completely clear like soda bottle would be. That said, you can also use soda bottles. You can use old McDonald's coffee cups. You can use salad containers. You can use berry containers. There's so many things that you can use for winter sowing, but having jugs just keeps it a lot easier. And in my experience, it's also the most foolproof way to do it. So all you're gonna do with winter sowing is cut a jug in half and then use something sharp to put a lot of holes in the bottom. And this is just for drainage so that when water goes in to water your seedlings, it has somewhere to go and it's not going to just pile up and flood your tiny little greenhouse here. You're gonna wanna put your seeds in and use some well-draining soil. I just sprinkle seeds in. This one has asparagus in it because asparagus is a pretty good thing to like sprinkle in and see what germinates. And it also readily self-seeds itself outside. So I figured this will be a good option to collect all my seeds from my plants and do some winter sowing to plant en masse here. You want to label what you've got in your winter sowing. Now I use a permanent marker. Just a heads up, a permanent marker is not permanent when it's out in the elements on something like a plastic jug. It is definitely going to fade. So if you want to invest in something like a xylene-free garden marker, you can. I have one. I still use permanent marker all the time though, because I either don't feel like going outside to find the marker or I can't find it. But if you are using permanent marker, I recommend labeling something on the inside of the jug and then also writing on the outside. And when you tape the jug back together, cover the label with the tape, and this will help the writing last a little bit longer in the elements because it's protected by a layer of tape. It is really cold here in Maryland Zone 7A. I already have a lot of my winter sowing started. Yes, I'm not wearing a coat. I'm really cold right now, so I'm just gonna quickly show you guys what the winter sowing setup I have out here looks like so far. I like these smaller jugs because sometimes I feel like I over plant when I winter sow just because I'm sprinkling a lot of stuff in. And then I will tape them together and of course leave the lid off so water can get in the top and snow can melt in. And I have them here behind one of my raised beds just to kind of protect them from some strong winds, so they aren't going to deal with as much of a cross breeze as they would if I were just sitting them out in the open. I also have a little McDonald's coffee cup here that I could not bear to throw away. I thought I would try to winter sow in that this year as well. But overall, I like the consistency of being able to line up jugs on the side of one of my raised beds. It may sound kind of crazy to just put this outside in the winter and let snow fall on it and let water get in it through rain and melting snow, but this is truly exactly what you want to be doing. You're going to panic the first time you do this and it snows and you look out there and your jugs are covered in snow. You're gonna think, surely everything's gonna die, right? But it does not. In fact, the snow can also have an insulating effect on your winter sown jugs to help with the germination and to help protect your seedlings. Winter sowing your seeds is also a way to naturally harden them off before transferring them out to your garden, which I really like because I don't have to carry stuff in and out all day. Winter sowing is going to allow you to just pop that lid off for a couple hours or for a whole day when it starts getting a little bit nicer, and that will expose your seedlings to the elements. It will expose them to to unfiltered sunlight. It will expose them to the breeze to help build stronger seedlings. That's something a lot of people will replicate indoors with a little fan on their seedlings that you don't have to do if you're using winter sowing. And then when it's time to plant, you can just gently dig out your seedlings with a fork and either pot them up into something else or put them straight into your garden. When to start winter sowing different things depends a lot on what grow zone you're in and what you're growing. Right now, I'm in Maryland zone 7A. It's January. I've put out some stuff a little bit early. The onions are out on time. I have a couple jugs full of onions out there, as well as downstairs starting under shop lights, which we'll talk about in a second. And I also have some jugs full of native seeds right now because the native seeds need a period of cold in order to germinate, which is called cold stratification. But probably in February, I will start putting out jugs with like mint, some of my other annual herbs that I want to grow, some of the annual flowers I want to grow. And then a little bit later, I will start with some of the extra vegetable seeds I have that I want to try to see what I can get out of winter sowing with. So when we say winter sowing, it could mean you're not sowing until like the very end of winter. It could mean the beginning of winter. It all depends on what you're growing and your grow zone. Okay, the next thing I want to talk about is using shop lights as grow lights to start seeds indoors. If you are starting seeds indoors, you'll definitely find that investing in a lot of grow lights, full spectrum grow lights, can get very expensive. However, using shop lights, which do not have the full spectrum of light that plants need, but are definitely enough to get seedlings started and on their way, that's a great solution. Shop lights are called shop lights because they're often purchased for like workshops, garages, stuff like that. I'm gonna show you guys what they look like here in my actual wood shop in the basement. We have two up here that some years I actually take down one of these to use as a grow light and then pop it up for additional light when I'm not starting seeds. And then over here, we have my super early season seed starts with two shop lights. We have one in the front, one in the back, and these are designed to be chained together, so I only have to plug them in once. And then I have everything here under the lights for about 12 hours a day and then on a heat mat. A couple things to keep in mind when you are growing with shop lights is that these will be enough for your plants when they're very small. So the first thing you'll see when your seedlings sprout is the cotyledons, and those are the not true leaves, they're often referred to, that sprout from the seed, and then you get your first set of true leaves after that. So a lot of cotyledons will look very similar. It's really hard to tell plants apart when they're just sprouting. But once you get that first or second set of true leaves, they'll start to look more like the plant that you're expecting. At that point, they're going to need a little bit broader spectrum of light than just shop lights, though I honestly pushed some of my plants a little far last year. They kind of suffered a tiny bit. I probably kept them under shop lights for like a week or two too long. That's only because I wanted to get them close enough to my last frost date that I could go ahead and transplant them outside without having to redo my whole setup and like move everything under full spectrum lights and all of that. Another thing to keep in mind with shop lights is that since they are not LED lights, usually they can get very hot to the touch. So once your plants start growing and getting taller, don't let them get too close to the actual shop light, because if they touch the light, they can burn the leaves. Now, if you're using shop lights to start your seeds and your seeds are not ready to go outside because it's still too cold and you don't have a full spectrum grow light or you don't want to invest in one, let's talk about a solution that you can use to get your plants that broader spectrum of light until it's time to plant them in the ground. And that is the storage tub greenhouse. So when I say a storage tub, I mean anything from like the size of a shoebox to like the large storage tubs that you might have like in your basement or in your attic. The only criteria is that the body of the storage tub needs to be clear. The lid does not need to be clear, because what I like to do is rotate it upside down, take that storage bin off, and then use what's the lid to the storage bin upside down to arrange my plants. So I haven't done anything like this year yet because it's still a little bit early, but I'm gonna show you guys some pictures of exactly what I mean, and I have a video all about this as well. So what you're doing here is a very similar concept to the winter sowing your seeds concept by creating a little portable greenhouse. Now, I don't really like to start my seeds in one of these. I like to start them indoors under a super strong light because seedlings need a lot of light and water, and it's just easier to do that if I'm not winter sowing them. But when it comes time that they need a little bit more light, they need a broader spectrum of light to really get going growing, and they need to start hardening off, I like to use the storage bin greenhouse method because it helps me leverage the power of the sun when it's still very, very cold outside. So in say like March, when it's still freezing outside, I can take a storage bin greenhouse outside, set it on my patio, and it can get up to like 60 degrees in there. So this is really, really great for your plants on the tail end of winter, or even like maybe in February where we're at here in zone 7, to really get them going without a giant heated greenhouse with lights in it. One thing to keep in mind about the storage tub greenhouse method is if you are using it before it gets too warm at night, you do need to carry this bin inside at night because it's not going to have the sun to keep things warm in there overnight. So this is definitely better for like where we're at in zone 7, maybe like end of February to March, when I'm not gonna get tired doing this for like 2 months in a row. But once temperatures start to get up into the 40s or low 50s at night, then I'm probably gonna leave it outside overnight. But before that, you definitely wanna take it inside to make sure you're protecting your seedlings. Also, when it starts to get closer to spring, even if it's not super hot outside, that storage bin is going to heat up really, really fast. I promise you, it's gonna heat up super fast, even if you're wearing a jacket outside. So what you can do to help prevent your seedlings from getting too overheated is just use like a rock or something to prop open the storage tub during the day so that it doesn't get too hot in there and you're creating some sort of ventilation. And when that happens, it's honestly maybe time to start taking the lid off for a couple hours during the day to start hardening off your seedlings and exposing them to the elements so that they are ready to transplant into your garden. And as a bonus, when I'm not using my storage tub to harden off seedlings, I like to use it to store my off-season gardening and seed starting supplies. So it's definitely something I feel like is not going to waste. I'm using it for something pretty much year-round in the garden. Okay guys, that is about it. My 3 scrappy budget gardening tips. Hope you guys found these helpful. Until my next video, happy planting.